speaker is Silvio Micali, speaking about collusive dominant strategy, truthfulness.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks again, Noam and Mikhail. So, collusive dominant strategy, truthfulness, joint work with Jing, who is there. So, let me tell you, this year happens to, by chance, numerology, to be the golden adversary of a very famous and beautiful paper by Vickrey. It's the paper that achieves efficiency via dominant strategy, truthfulness, in auctions of one good with available in multiple identical copies and multiple demands, right? That's a classic paper, but I think 50 years is a long time. Perhaps we can improve it. And the improvement that we suggest today is to do the same with collusion, okay? So here is our agenda. I'm going to recall what Vickrey auctions are. Then I'm going to tell you our collusion model. It's very broad, so it's not proprietary, really. Then our solution concept. This may be a little bit proprietary, but it should be enough convincing. By the way, I want to say that today being Thursday, I'm not going to be controversial. This should be a very simple, everybody agrees paper, unless some of you is in tip-top form to disagree even with that. On Sunday, however, I'm going to be proud to be controversial and take a different agenda. Then we'll present a nice, simple mechanism and derive some conclusions. Very good. So, what are these Vickrey auctions? So remember, there are one good, say, available in identical copies, and there are some number, by chance here, there are 5 players, red, blue, purple, and 5 cars. Same brand, same color. So let's a little bit make sure that this is general. Here is some 5 etching from 5 lithographs from the same etching. That is a Miro etching, and is available in 5 copies, or it could be anything. So this gun could be now the goods, the 5 copies of the good, all identical. And then now the players have valuations for them and have a decreasingly marginal valuation. So let's focus on the green player. There it is. And you say, well, how much would you value to get one of these copies? Oh, 120. And do you want a second copy? Well, that would be 60, given that I have a first one valued to me. And then 50 for the third, 20, maybe 0 for the fifth, okay? That is the setting. So what does Vickrey do? Very smart, very elegant mechanism. He says, everybody bids, right, in such a case, your valuation. In this case, the valuation is an M-tuple of numbers remaining how much value you have for each your marginal valuation. So these are the bids that come in, ... because they exit from the screen. And so what Vickrey says, there are 5 copies, take the 5 highest bids. These are the winning bids. The red player, I'm going to highlight in red their bids so you can see who owns of these winning bids. They will receive copies. And then there are the losing bids, poor guys. So I'm telling you already what this is allocation. Green gets 2 copies, red gets 2 copies, and purple gets 1 copy. How much do they pay? Well, given that now the prices, because it's dominant strategy truthful, are not going to depend on what you say. So these are going to be just the winners. We already decided them. And the price is going to be only deduced from the losing bids. So red player pays essentially the highest losing bids, which is not green. Because why? Because it should not depend on his price. I could say it better, but I think this is good enough. I'm not going to talk about Vickrey. I want to expand on it, okay? So it should pretty good what it means. Because you get 2 items, you displace 2 people, and you somehow, in some sense, you must be responsible and pay for these things. And the red player plays these ones, and of course skips himself. And the purple player pays that bid. That's it. Now, first of all, this is efficient, no proof, trust Vickrey, and the revenue is not that bad, right? You take the 5 losing bids, efficiency is what we want to focus today, not revenue, Okay? But, you know, when you can get money on top of being efficient, who is going to disagree? So that is the point. The other thing is, this is dominant strategy truthful. Again, no proof whatsoever. But let's remind to ourselves, what does this mean? That means that binding your true valuation for any player is the best thing that any other strategy you can adopt. And in particular is, no matter what the other player's strategy may going to be. Okay? That's an important for all, because this important for all is more important than the other two quantifiers. Why? Because this means that you are belief irrelevant. So what I really think that in game theory, when the game you inherited by nature, by tradition, you didn't design it, then you go to Sergio, say, Sergio, how do I play this game? Say, well, so help me out. What can be the beliefs of the players that are going to matter if you're going to decide how to play optimally for yourself? But if I have the freedom to design the game, freedom comes with responsibility. And I have the responsibility to deliver you a game in which you say, what are the beliefs of the players? I don't know, and I don't care. So that is a fundamental quantifier that Vicky achieves. We'd like to keep it. Hold on a second. This is an audience of friends, right? And we trust each other and convene over here because we love each other. There is nothing in my sleeves. And I'm going to open, there is the word thirst here. And what is written on the other side? Jason! Yes, Jason.
I thought you said you weren't going to be controversial.
Oh, well, that's what I'm trying to say. Unless some of you, which I guessed was going to be you, is going to be in tip-top form. So that, you confirm, so far I've been right. Okay, so let's not be controversial. On Sunday, I had to save energy to defend against controversy, okay? So let's say, now what do we want to do? Remember, we want to add collusion. I believe, and this goes back to the panel, that at least one of the directions was mentioned was robustness against collusion. Why? Because an equilibrium, even a dominant strategy equilibrium, the best thing you can say is that it is safe against individual deviations. And you know what? That is not so easy to achieve, but that is not enough to achieve either. Because now, when you worry about collusion and being humans, right, and not living in Scandinavia, why Scandinavia? Because I've never been there, but if I would have been there, also in Scandinavia, so people collude. So that means that you have to look at the surroundings a bit more clearly. And so this looks an equilibrium, right? But there is a pulley and lever in a rope that says, oh, you have no incentive to deviate because you cannot elevate yourself either. Yeah, but if you collude, you can elevate yourself to the peril of others, okay? So my view of the world is, given people a chance, they will collude. Prohibited, you threaten with jail, plus sort of lashes, they will collude. Okay, collusion is a problem. So what is our collusion model? Then first of all, arbitrary structure. So that means I'm assuming that it's going to be even mechanism dependent. You guys are all honest, but the occasion makes a person a thief. Once you see the mechanism, says, gee, at this point I want to collude with Jason and Sergio because, hey, we can skin the rest of us of them alive, and that's how we should do it. Okay? And how many? But we are not the only one. Avinatan and Michael also say collude, right? They can be a madhouse. Everybody colludes with whomever wants, and else the collisions can be arbitrary sides. Everybody colludes with everybody. Well, so here is what the mechanism designer sees. The poor guy sees, it's a bunch of players. Underneath the covers, these players essentially partition themselves into an arbitrary partition. Okay. So we call this the collision structure. And who are these guys? These are the suckers who decided to stay alone. Okay? We call them the independent players. Okay. Yep.
I mean, why are the coalitions disjoint? You could have some crooks who belong to several coalitions.
Because of the third axiom, Michael, that I'm going to say. So that is not an axiom, that I'm saying is an impediment, right? The second one to say what colluders can do. We can actually simplify our job if I want to say, well, is the player are enabled to make side payments to another? Nonsense. Our players, they can pay, they have cash, they have credit cards, they can wire money, they can do anything they want. On top of it, side payments is not enough. How do you coordinate themselves? How do you know that you don't stab him in the back? You can write contract, enforceable contract. In fact, contract collusive players write better contracts, more enforceable than the one we write in our courts, right? So I'm not worried about that. So that is the other thing, the only constraint really, because after all, for all, but at some point I must have a rationality in, otherwise I'm not going to prove anything. And these collisions are rational. So what I'm assuming is that the players belonging to the same collisions want to maximize the sum of their individual utilities. Okay? So, and because they can transfer money, that in some sense is also a rational thing for them to do. There is no reason to leave some money on the table if you can get more money and then redistribute it against themselves. And this somehow justifies that it makes it harder for me to think if I'm on a collision with you and I'm a collision with Sergio, am I maximizing this sum of utility or this sum of utility? So therefore, we'll think of this as a constraint, which it is. But it's very broadly used. Yeah?
Communication is verifiable in your world or not?
Yes. Whatever is against me, against me. You choose how you want to communicate. Verifiable, unverifiable, satellite, and satellite, a public beacon, anything. Okay?
You assume that you maximize the total utility of the coalition?
No, I don't want to maximize. I'm the as a designer. I want efficiency. These guys want, if they enter in a collision, they try to maximize the sum of their utilities.
Not the individual one, but the sum of the utility.
So if you want to maximize your individuality, yes, stay alone. Or if you want to maximize this, go with that. Okay, it's your pick. Yeah. All right? That's a model. Good. You bought the model. That's good. So now what is in this model, what happens to some of the mechanisms we know and love? For instance, single good auctions, it remains efficient even though it can generate less revenue. Because I'll tell you the truth. Why? Because the damn second pricing mechanism is so simple that there is little that a collision can do. If Sergio now say collude, listen, he says, Sergio, you valued 100, I valued 80. Why, I want to spoil for you, obliged to play 80? We are in a collusion. You bid 100, I bid 0. And then if Sergio wins, bids the second price, but I'm not part of it, right? So you can get a little, that's the worst you can do. And efficiency actually continues to work. Very good. We go instead in combinatorial auctions. It's a more complicated auction. And so what happens is that you get 0 efficiency and 0 revenue. Why? Also Bell and Milgram. I mean, it's not their fault, but they proved it, okay, that can happen in the VCG. So the natural question is, what happens to Vickrey? So that is not as complex an auction like this, is more complex than a single good. What happens? So first of all, let me convince you that collusion destroys revenue as a stepping stone. So this is really our 5 lithographs of Miro. And these are, the players are in 2 groups, and these groups have the professional, the art dealers, right? And says, oh, this is a fantastic buy. It's $1 million each of this copy, right? And who are these guys? These are the amateurs. They say, oh, I like the drawing. They don't recognize even as a Miro. They value it. Oh, my living room, $1,000. That's my value, okay? So this being the case, Vickrey would work like this. Notice there are some 8 or 9 professionals. So the first 5 bids are going to be bidding truthfully $1 million. Then there is another 4 millions left over and a bunch of thousands. So what happens is that, you see, these guys are going to set the price for the professionals. So at the end of the day, the revenue is going to be 5 million. And essentially, we have extracted the surplus of all the professional bidders. They will win. I don't know which one of them, but we extract all the full surplus. Of course, the professional says, this is really a rotten deal, right? My utilities are at 0. So let me tell you what we do. Here is the smart thing to do. We collude, right? Because we know these amateurs, they don't realize what they're dealing with. And so what we do is that we bid at 0, except for 5 of us. And then the revenue is going to be 5,000 rather than 5 million. So now there is money to be had. We are rearranging between us. It's a good idea, good idea. And that will happen, not might happen. That's my prediction. Okay, so what are we doing? Okay, revenue destroyed. So what? That was an efficiency mechanism, right? Have we destroyed efficiency? Not in this example. But can the efficiency be destroyed? Just wait a minute. What about social welfare? So, again, now we have, say, 4 colluders. The professionals are 4. and there are 5 amateurs. And but my oh my, one of them is Bill Gates, depicted here in blue. Okay, now remember, it is a fact of life that I don't try to ignore. As a mechanism decided should pretend to defend against it. That's a fact of life. People have beliefs. And if you know people like we do at this stage of our life, people have weird beliefs. So we have no control over what people believe. So why don't I tell you what my professionals believe? They believe Bill Gates wants free copies and he values $10 million each. Or else his time is valuable to what he's doing here for these scribbles, right? So he must know the value, and for him, he wants free at $10 million. And the others, 1K each. Now, if this is the case, right, look at these bids. They assume that bidding truthfully, the following thing will happen, right? That's their reasoning in their head. And then these will be the prices. Bill Gates is going to pay these $2 million plus another one because he wanted a third copy. And these 2 guys are going to play the other bid if you bid truthfully. So that is a rotten set of affairs. Here is a rational plan for us to do. Let's drop 2 valuations of ours and pay less. So let's do it visually. These guys disappear, and then what happens? The prices is good also for Bill Gates, but we give him a hand to him too. So now he pays only, we bid $1 million to be sure that we are in the winning bids, 2 of us. The other of us bid 0. So the price for Bill Gates is going to be $3,000, and the price for the 2 of us is going to be $2,000, and we're still plenty of money, $2 million essentially minus $2,000 to divide among us, right? It's profitable to collude with these things. Turns out beliefs are often wrong. They were wrong. Here is the truth. The truth is that Bill Gates, what does he know? So he's a John Doe like any other. He's in the $1,000 range, okay? So here is actually evaluation. So when they implement the rational plan, what happens is that if this is the situation, by the way, the maximum social welfare is 4 million plus 1,000, right? They come from really the profession. They dictate the maximum social welfare. But once they implement the plan, which is this, the allocation is going to be this, and so somehow, strange enough, 2 people dropped. Bill Gates got 3 copies at 1,000 each, right? And you got only 2 copies. So the realized social welfare is 2 million. You received 2 million of the good. Hey, but the actual maximum is 4 million. So now you can say, isn't a factor of 2? What's the problem? Yes, but I can change this example to drive this ratio to 0, okay? A bit more complex example, but you see how it goes, right? So essentially, collusion plus beliefs destroy efficiency. So what do we want, therefore? What do we want is that it should be dominant strategy truthful for all, individual and collision alike. That's what we want. And if we succeed, then beliefs will become irrelevant again. And they ought to become irrelevant again.
So do you have something in your sleeve for me? No? I have a question.
I can only predict the first question, not the second one, okay?
You were colluding, obviously.
You see?
So what if these 3 don't drop out, but bid 1,000 each? I mean, why should they drop out? The professionals. Oh, the 2 of the professionals dropped out, right?
Yeah, but Vijay, if they bought 1,000 each, sure, but assume that the amateurs, some of which they value at 2,000. It's a slightly different example. Even though you bid 1,000, somebody else bids more than you. I mean, it's nothing dramatic happens. If it is just one example. So once you see the example, you can generalize in any possible way, right? Oh. Yep. It's fixed. It's fixed after the mechanism. I'm not going to say that people who collude are husband and wife who have already prearranged before the mechanism to collude. I present a mechanism, a bunch of people organize themselves. Somebody are left alone because they could not even make agreements with anybody else, or they thought they want to be honest and not collude, and whatever the reason is. Now I'm dealing with some structure. I think, if there is the grand coalition, in some sense, that would be good for me. The hard case, like what Jason said before, when n goes to infinity, that's the easy case. The real interesting case is when it is small. Because I care only today about efficiency, if people, and there are rational coalitions, if you form your grand coalition, I'm a happy designer. Because you know how to distribute the thing. The strange thing is that there are 1, 2, 3 smaller than the grand coalition. Right? That's the hard part. So let me tell you what happens. There are some good news. There is a coalition incentive compatibility has already been defined. What we want has already been done. In fact, by Green and Lafont, sometimes called collision proof. And actually, there is also bribe proof, which is collision proof for 2 players, focusing on 2 players. That's done by Schumer. So this is good news, but there are bad news. Why? Because they prove, the same Green and Lafont who introduced the concept, they also proved, say, hey, it is impossible. Because those were the old days in which having seen VCG, people say, wow, by doing one strategy, we are going to conquer the world. Say, well, not with collusion, you cannot extend it, and there is impossibility proof. They provide another impossibility proof 2 years later. Schumer provides an impossibility proof in '99, and then there is impossible. Whole virus that I cannot go into serve them all, okay? It's impossible to go over all. Okay, so therefore, what to do? Perfect. So let me tell you our solution concept. Is collusive DST, collusive dominant strategy truthfulness, as the title said. And let's go line by line. So these are the identical copies of the goods, M of them. These are the true valuation. You tell me these are the copies, everybody has, oh, that's my valuation, are immediately there. Now comes the mechanism, right? So somebody designed the mechanism. Not knowing what the true valuation is, that is it's totally ignorant designer here. And then, after you see the mechanism, the people partition themselves into coalitions. And so let's focus on the mechanism. The mechanism is going to be not your traditional mechanism, because the strategy of a mechanism is going to be a pair. The second entry is a valuation, as usual. And what is the first part? Is the coalition you belong to. De jure, which is my ancestral way to say, by law, I'm going to say, everybody is welcome to this auction. You are colluders, come on in, welcome, sit over there. You are independent, welcome too, sit over there. So, and it's totally legal in this auction to be colluders. And however, in fact, so much so, don't be afraid, tell me whom you are colluding. That is a part of your strategy. Now, not to be confused with collusion leveraging, never mind. So this means, hey, but no, even though you let me collude, doesn't mean that I'm going to be truthful, right? Because if Sergio, Avinatan, Vincent, you want to collude with me? Yes. So Anna, Michael, and Jason collude, says, hey, we are the colluders. These guys, they let us collude. So but here's what they could do. Sergio, you pretend to be independent. Could you? Okay. Avinatan and Vincent declare there is a collusion just the 2 of us, right? And the 3 of us, the 4 of us decided to declare ourselves separately. Maybe we can have some better outcome this way, right? The fact that I make it illegal doesn't mean that you have to be truthful. This is 2 different notions. So the people may lie. So what are the truthful strategy? Well, if you are independent, you say, I am independent, that's my true valuation. And if I'm a colluder, well, that's my true valuation, and that's with whom I am colluding. Okay? That's what to be truthful means. And what do we want?
So you announce the true valuations of everybody in my coalition?
No. What?
Why is it TV sub C? That's a TV.
Oh, yes, the screen says that I do. Okay. I'm announcing, I think the same results works even if you don't do it, but the screen took over, I just say that. Okay? In fact, I'm not going to even leverage today this part. So what I want is that it should be, no matter what the collusion structure is, and no matter which coalition belongs in this collusion structure, it should be telling the truth for individual and and collusion alike. In fact, everybody colludes. An independent person is just a collision of size 1. Okay. So now let me say, well, this what is CM is us, okay, and who is GL? It's Green and Lafont, and who is S is Schumer, okay? So how do we compare? You see, they wanted, say, what was their notion? Their notion essentially could be summarized by saying no gain from collusion. So that means that, say, so we know that if everybody acts individually, we already know what to do. So what does it mean collusion resistant in the Green-Lafont way? To say that if you collude, right, you have nothing to gain more than by bidding independently. And if this is true, and bidding independently really works and is efficient, we are done. What we want is something else stronger. We want that all coalitions should be truthful as coalitions, should declare themselves. So, and I want to say that that is a mean and that's an end, but means and ends should never be confused, right? So, of course, it's a very natural way to have a mechanism that enforces no gain from collusion to achieve efficiency if when we are independent, is dominant strategy truthful.
I'm not confused. What's a quantifier of the coalition structure?
Any, all, for all coalition
structure.
structure.
Solution concept
Yeah.
that is, there will be no gain for any coalition structure.
Not no gain. That's what they wanted. My solution concept is no matter the solution structure, then the right thing for rational players to do is to be truthful in any coalition structure. Okay? So let me bypass a little bit and just say, listen, what we do, we say our strategy are valuations and coalition. Their strategy are valuations. So you know what? There is enough wiggle room here to bypass impossibility results. There is the potential of bypassing the original results. So why? Because we have a richer strategy set, right? So now, say, what happens to the revelation principle? And the answer is, who knows? It's unclear, right? Because it's not that when I come to the auction, I decided to collude with Vincent. But now the mechanism that you propose that make it illegal to collude says, Michael, I know that you don't collude in general, but here is legal. Do you mind colluding with me? Right? If it's not prosecuted or considered bad anymore. So there is a possibility of bypassing this. So, but can we do it? Do we gain power by reaching the strategy and do this? Can we do it? Can we skin the cat? The cat is still around. So here is our mechanism. So recall, this is the situation. The mechanism does not know what's really happening. And we are assuming that the valuations are upper bounded by $1 trillion. Nobody likes more than $1 trillion. So here is the mechanism. Very simple. You announce, each player announces his own valuation. Now the screen says otherwise. Go back to my own valuation and with whom I'm colluding. Okay. Then what the mechanism does, that's it. It's a normal form mechanism. You guys are done. Now it's me, the mechanism, who takes over. How do I interpret all these things? First of all, I check that things are pair consistent. And if they're not, I punish and abort, meaning I don't assign the goods to anybody. How? Assume, by example, yes. But then I get another minute, Anna. Yeah.
You're going for dominant strategy, right? Which means no matter what anyone else does,
Absolutely.
I want to do what I do.
Yeah.
So how can you punish me if someone doesn't agree with me?
I didn't say the rest. I didn't say how I punish. There is some mystery. I mean, you know what? It's going to be very simple. But let me tell you a secret. There is something to prove, right? And so I'm not going to show what there is to prove. I'm just going to make it simple. But that is an excellent question, and perhaps later on I'll be able to address it. Assume these are the strategy. To tell you what pair consistency is, never mind the evaluations and focus on the strategies. So the mechanism draws the player over here, and it goes through the declaration of collision one by one. It says, player 1 declares he colludes with 3. So I'm going to draw an arrow between 1 and 3. Player 2 declares to collude with 4. Player 3 declares to collude with himself. I don't draw any arrow here. Player 2 declares with 4. Player 5 by himself. That's it. Now, what does the mechanism do? Say, hey, this looks good. 1 says I collude with 2, and 2 agrees. I collude with 1. Thumb up. 2 and 4, sorry. Here, 1 says I'm colluding 3, 3 says no, I'm alone. Oops. Then you pay 2m number of goods, b the upper bound, to the third guy, and no goods to anybody, everybody goes home. Okay. Else we are not in this case. So else we assume that the collision structure that I don't know, because I'm the designer, is going to be the connected component partition that I'm going to describe. Assume again that these are the collusion parts. Then the mechanism does 1 goes to 2, 1 goes to 2 and 4, 3 alone, 2 goes to 4, 3 and this. That's it. Then the mechanism design, this is the structure.
1 and 4 did not.
Yeah, 1 and 4 say, hey, mechanism. You told me this is dominant. I'm afraid to go to your mechanism, to this kind of auction, right? Because, right, and you made me collude. 1 never wanted to be colluding with 4, and I'm forcing it, right? I'm extremely suspicious of this mechanism. Don't worry. I can prove it works, so it doesn't matter. So, what I'm declaring this as to be the collision structure may or may not be the true partition, and moreover, 1 and 4 are screaming bloody murder. I never wanted to collude with 4, and my answer is blame it on 2. Bye. Okay. But now to say, now what I do? So now that I know that, now to decide on location and prices. And I'm going to use this fictitious collision structure. How? Everybody bids. Then 5 highest bids. These are the players that belong there. And now what would the Vicri done? Red gets two values and pays this plus this. Never mind Vicri now. What do? We allocate 2 distinct players and we price 2 coalitions. By picture means the following. You see, these guys, red and green, belong to the same coalition, so I treat them the same, and they are all going to get free goods, and they pay. You see, I'm jumping 45 here. Why? Because this guy is in the coalition. Right? And I treat them as one player, even though I allocated to them individually. So red gets 2 goods, green gets 1 good, but maybe the first player, one of them, plays this. Okay?
So the grand coalition pays nothing.
That is perfect. I want efficiency. What do I like here about payments?
You mean
Yes.
you transfer the whole problem to the coalition. How they I mean, you have.
But not everybody can make agreements. I'm sorry. If you're going to get agreements, I'm a free man, right? All right. So then blue plays this. The grand coalition is the easy case here, okay?
It's easy because you've moved the problem to now the grand coalition. You sit down and you decide. What
Look,
to do.
that is the.
It's okay.
But for efficiency, I can do it. And say, right? So for revenue is a different story. So the difficult case here is not n goes to infinity, as Jason said. The difficult case when n is small. The difficult case is not the grand coalition. The difficult case when it is chopped up in a bunch of coalitions.
Silvio, you're making people in your groups who didn't mean to collude.
Absolutely. You should be extremely suspicious.
Despite one didn't want to collude before, they somehow know how to divide up the money. How
No,
come?
it's better for them. He just gets the iron and pays less.
Yes.
If one, so in this example, one phone still get the iron,
Hey,
so you get even if
These are questions. I have just one slide anyway.
But still.
Yes, I know. I'm not going to analyze any of this. Only I'm saying you are right. I'm very suspicious. You are right. But I'm very suspicious. You are right too. Everybody's right. Right? This doesn't need to be proven.
The previous slide?
Yes, but she keeps on saying that at 0 time. So so let me go. So let me conclude, and then maybe we can go. Okay. You know what? If you believe that this is art. So by the way, so maybe I can answer this question now, taking my see. Let me convince you that there is a hope to do this. And in fact, actually, it's not that very hard, right? Because what I notice is that I get efficiency, but I get less revenue, right? Because now, if you collude, you skip over not only yourself, but also your colluder. So therefore, it says, gee, if I'm alone, I skip only myself. If I collude, I skip a lot of things. You know what? I'd love to collude. But unfortunately, these 3 people are colluding by themselves and not me, right? But when it's in dominant strategy, it may be beneficial for me to declare that I collude with these 3. But why? I never have an agreement with them. Who cares if I have an agreement? Because dominant strategy means no matter what do they do. And what if by a miracle, these guys, even though they're colluding by free, they include me, then if doing a strategy means even in this case I should not do it. And therefore, that was some strange payment going around that enforces them that they will never want to include me. It's going to be rational for me to declare no collision and blah, blah, blah. Is this good enough? There is something to prove, okay? And I'm not going to prove it. What I'm going to focus as a conclusion and say, impossibility is hard. There was all kinds, never say impossible. Because impossibility means in a particular model, and the model ought to be very precise, and if you sidestep the model, then the impossible becomes possible. Tradition is temporary. What is tradition here? Tradition is to bid your type, and is a beautiful revelation principle has given a lot of us. But you know what? Nothing is forever. That's another way I could say this. So there is we better, richer strategy which don't respect the type, because I'm not a colluder unless the mechanism lets me to. It can be better off. I thought I was non-controversial today. What happened to me on Sunday? Start again. Then I want to say we ought to improve everything we can. And we could improve efficiency. By the way, to which extent we can do revenue, that's another story. But the fact that I'm not going to have such a clean solution for revenue, at the most I can start to approximate in some way, in some fashion, doesn't mean that I should improve what I can improve. That is a moral obligation as a man to live as a better world we inherited. And finally, here is, let me tell you a line from my book. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So perhaps the time must come, rather than fighting coalitions, which at the end of the day, we cannot fight. Marry them. Make them one of us. Welcome to the auction. Give them something to do. So now co-opt them into making them too your own bidding as a mechanism design. That's a better strategy. And finally, one way that we can look at our work is to really, these people were separated, the good and the bad, there are all kinds of people, artificial separation. People are always a mixed. I don't see any reason why cooperative game theory and non-cooperative game theory. One way to treat what we do is really stitching together these things and not differentiate anymore if you are that or not. And let me tell you the truth, don't separate us. We always wanted to be together. Thank you. Yes, Jilinga and Sergio.
Yeah, so can I ask a question about what type of collusion is allowed? I know that you said a lot about it. So supposing I'm in an online auction setting, is this always the case that it's not beneficial for me to create fake identity such that to pretend that I have large collusion? So because if the auctioneer doesn't know the player's identity and collusion is allowed, I can always create fake identity and declare consistent collusions among ourselves and have a bigger collusion. Is that always not beneficial in this setting?
No, at the most you skip your own prices anyway, but everybody else's prices you pay. So if from this point of view, you're not going to get any, from shelling you are saying, you're not going to get any benefit. Yeah.
That's always true.
Yeah. Sergio?
Just to clarify, is the following statement correct or not? It's always an equilibrium for everybody to get C had to be in the grand coalition. Or no? Is that correct or not? Is there always an equilibrium where the grand coalition will form? I don't know exactly whether everybody will announce it or it will be just a transitive closure being the grand coalition and then they pay nothing. Is that an equilibrium in your model?
Is that an equilibrium? Yes.
Always.
Yes.
This will be an equilibrium.
Yeah, because nobody pays anything, right?
Okay,
right. But the point is that, yes, I agree. So but the point is that even though it is the best equilibrium,
then I'm a little unhappy.
well, but the point is the following, that you see, what I really believe, we can...
The whole problem has been transferred now to the coalition, which is the grand coalition. What do? Okay, so now you have eliminated the seller gets nothing, and now there is this big...
The seller never wanted to do anything anymore.
I don't care. I mean, you can, so to get efficiency, sure, you say, just let the grand coalition split it efficiently in some mysterious way which is completely outside the model, pay nothing to the seller.
Hey, I didn't want to be controversial, but I can be controversial. So then let me be controversial. So, okay? So I'm an honorary Israeli here, so I can be very direct. Okay, so what I'm saying is the following. And so you guys assume and say, oh, that's the equilibrium. Oh, the equilibrium. What else can we do but being an equilibrium? I say, good luck to reaching this equilibrium. You think it's easy. So you think they say, oh, if you benefit by all colluding, everybody will collude. Maybe yes, maybe not. Okay? I don't think it is easy to collude. And what I'm saying,
it's completely outside your model, but that is part of the issue.
But
how does this collusion is created and what happens there? You are completely ignoring it, but I think that's what the whole action is going to be.
Well, no. Put you like things axiomatically, right? So it's at least Eyal likes things axiomatically, right? So there is a bunch of axioms here to say what is Nash bargaining. If this axiom and this axiom and this axiom, that's the way to go. To say, but I don't believe people bargain this way. But then you tell me different axioms, right? All I'm saying here is that if collisions are arbitrary and collision, however, once you form it is rational, if these are the axioms, I'm right, no matter what. So you must find another way at the interpretation of how collision arise and must be irrational. Because if they're irrational, I win.
Okay,
That's an axiom.